Hello, Internet. Welcome to the first episode of Balls and Bros, the take 3. I'm David. This is Jacob. We're the Bros. Well, Jacob, what kind of balls are we talking about today?
Today we'll be talking about football. Today's special will be about the NFL draft. This is an exciting topic for me, and it gives me an opportunity to teach you about the draft.
Yes, this is going to be an episode entirely about the draft, so that's his thing. I'm going to be asking him questions. Let's get started then. Jacob, a lot of people say that this may be one of the most talented groups of draftees that there's been in a while. Which group in this NFL draft stands out most to you?
Well, in my mind, you have to look at what Denver did in the Super Bowl. Everybody's trying to collect pass rushers, defensive ends, and now the defensive tackle position. 5 years ago, that was an underrated position, really underrated position. Not a lot of attention there. Now you're looking at guys like Malik Jackson getting these big contracts. And in this year's draft class, it's full of defensive ends and defensive tackles. I actually have 14 players going in either the first or second round. So that's a pretty big number. I like this position because Noah Spence can really get after the quarterback. He's very quick around the edges. His bend and burst is very good. Joey Bosa's power, he's really good as well. As you know, he's projected to go as the top defensive lineman. Shaq Lawson and Kevin Dodd, they did work at Clemson, both of them. They were really dominant together. Emmanuel Ogbah from Oklahoma State, he was a force coming off the edges. He's actually in my lower tier. He's more to the second round in my mind. A lot of people have him in the first, but I just think he needs a little bit more polishing, but he actually has a lot of potential as well. DeForest Buckner is a force on the inside, so teams will likely put him as defensive tackle, and he's actually at the bottom of my list. Even though people have him going even in the top 5 in the draft, he's at the bottom of my list. Just the film didn't impress me as much. The defensive tackles is probably the best it's been in about 10 years, maybe more. Robert Nkemdiche, Andrew Billings, Ashawn Robinson, Jeremy Reed, Kenny Clark, Sheldon Rankins. I mean, those are all guys who can really get after the quarterback and stuff the run. So, yeah, I think that the D-line has to be the best group out of everyone.
Which kind of brings me to my next question. Which players do you think will come into the NFL and have an immediate impact on the field for whatever team drafts them? Do you think it'll be one of the defensive linemen?
Yeah, like I said earlier, Noah Spence in my mind is the best overall defensive lineman. He's one of the best players in the draft, even though he's really underrated. I think no matter what team he goes to, he will probably put up 8 or more sacks next season.
In his first season?
In his first season, no matter what team he goes to, because he's really, really good. I think I have the Jets taking him, and as you know, they already have a good defensive line.
Yes, it is.
So, I mean, he can just fit right in, and teams won't be able to double him. So he's one player that I think will cause an instant impact for that team. Another player is Laremy Tunsil, the projected overall first-round pick. He's a very dominant offensive lineman. He will protect the quarterback He will keep him off the ground. No matter what team he goes to, he will have an instant impact. Um,
Anybody from perhaps any of the offensive or defensive skill guys that will bring something else to the team as well?
well, Laquan Treadwell from Ole Miss, he can really fly. He's the receiver, and he has the best hands out of anybody in the group. I have him as a 5-star player coming out of college. He's my top 5 players overall in the draft. He's a very, very good receiver. His speed will kill you. His moves will create a lot of extra yards after the catch. I think if you pair him right, he'll have a chance to do really, really good. I'm not sure right now if any of the receivers have a chance to just go in day one and become an instant star like Odell Beckham. But if you can pair him with Odell Beckham or with another receiver or even maybe a team who has a good tight end, then I think they'll be able to do some damage. He'll have an instant impact with that team. Another player is Reggie Ragland, the inside linebacker from Alabama. We see it every year that the NFL is dying on big hitters and just the old school play, physical.
Yes.
Reggie Ragland is an old school linebacker. He's not as good as Lawrence Taylor, but like that's kind of how he plays. Like he's that old school type guy. He's a grinder. I really, really like him. If you watch his film, he's a crazy tackler, like crazy good. His coverage skills are really good. He has everything that you want a linebacker to have. And now, like I said at the beginning of the show, everybody's trying to get their defense to be like the Denver Broncos. But the Broncos had good linebackers. So if you're a team that has a few pieces on defense already, you need to add Reggie Ragland to that team because he's a very good player and he'll have an instant impact on day one. My last player is Vernon Hargreaves. You know, my favorite player in the draft. He's a ball hawk. He can stay man-to-man with you, with the receiver. He can drop back in zones. He can play the nickel. He can do anything you ask him to, and he is the best coverage guy in the draft. A lot of people Jalen Ramsey, but that's not true. If you look at cornerback versus cornerback, Vernon Hargreaves is actually the best coverage guy. So he will have an instant impact no matter what team he goes to.
Interesting. So every year, players get drafted, perhaps get a little hyped up too much, and they don't seem to work out in the NFL. It happens every year. There are just busts after busts. Some teams have had more than others.
Like the Cleveland Browns.
Like the Cleveland Browns. What players do you think maybe will get drafted in the NFL this year that will not find success like most people think they will? Whether it be because they're just not up to the NFL level or because you've done your draft already. Do you think that maybe a player will be drafted into a team that does not fit, does not have the same system that they work in?
Yeah, I have a few names for that. This list it will probably make a lot of people question what I'm saying because in 90% of the people's eyes, Jalen Ramsey, Joey Bosa, Miles Jack, DeForest Buckner, those are like your top tier guys.
Yes.
In my mind, from what I've seen, they're not as good as everybody is hyping them up to be. The hype this year is actually really crazy. My first player is Jalen Ramsey. The question is, what do you want him as? because if you want him as a cornerback, he's a bust in today's NFL. If you ranked him from all the top cornerbacks in this year's draft class, he wouldn't even be in the top 5 out of those guys. And you know, in every year's draft, it's hard to even find one good cornerback who really stands out. So if he's not even making the top 5, then that shows you something. He's an amazing safety. He can really play safety. So if you have him as a safety, yeah, he's gonna find some success. I don't think it's gonna be like everybody's saying, like he's the next greatest, next best thing on defense. He will find some success as safety. No success as cornerback based off what I've seen. Another player is DeForest Buckner, the big defensive tackle from Oregon.
It's a big man.
Yep, a lot of people like him. His skill set. I'm not very fond of his style of play. That's just me though. There's other defensive tackles. I mentioned to you earlier in the show that there's 14 players I have a first or second round grade on.
Yeah.
I do have a second round grade on him. Will he go in the second round? Absolutely not. He's gonna go in the first round, probably top 15 picks for sure. But the teams need to be aware of what they're getting. Do you want DeForest? He's not a game changer. So you can grab him then and there with your pick, with your first pick, or you can fall back and get guys like Sheldon Rankins, Kenny Clark, Andrew Billings, guys who are going to be there in the second round most likely. But yeah, I don't think DeForest Buckner is going to live up to his expectations. The third guy is Carson Wentz. I'm sorry, Cleveland fans. I think you're going to do it again. Y'all are going to draft another quarterback who can't find success in the NFL. Carson Wentz is actually a pretty good passer. I watched his film and I didn't really have anything negative to say about him, but I didn't have too many positive things to say about him either. Not enough to show me that he's going to be a good quarterback. Jared Goff, Paxton Lynch, I had them over him. I think they will find at least some success in this league. Carson Wentz, I'm not too sold on. The fourth player I have is Jarran Reed. Jarran Reed has been the number 2 guy at Alabama. I don't know if you knew this. He played alongside Sean Robinson. They're both projected to go in the first round.
Yes.
Behind them was Reggie Ragland, the linebacker. I mean, the defense was set, it's solid. So, what Jarran Reed did, was it just him? Or was it a Sean Robinson next to him? Was it Reggie Ragland coming from the back? And the other studs, was it Cyrus Jones in the secondary? I mean, all the players gave him time to get to the quarterback, gave him time, to do stuff. So I don't know, I'm not sold on Jarran Reed. Will he be a bust? Most likely, I think. Sean Robinson is the better defensive tackle. He will find some success in this league. But Jarran Reed, I'm not too sold on. He was a good player. I had a low first round, early second round grade on him. He will probably go in the middle to the end of the first round, but I think he would need the right fit.
Yeah,
For him to find.
for him to succeed,
Yeah.
he needs to be around the right players.
Yeah.
Perhaps as he did in Alabama, where he had excellent players around him to almost distract the offensive line for him to get through.
Yes. My last player is Miles Jack, and everybody has him as their best linebacker.
There's a lot of hype.
Hands down. If Jalen Smith was healthy, that's a different question because he's my number one overall player, just based on the film. But Miles Jack, see, this one's a little different than everybody else. I don't think he's gonna be a bust. I just don't think he's gonna live up to all the expectations set for him. People see him as a game changer, as a Von Miller or Luke Kuechly, and I really don't see that. I just see somebody who you can plug and play. He will be a starter. He will find a little bit of success, but if you're looking for him to transform your defense, like some scouts and analysts are saying, I just don't think that that's gonna happen.
So on the on the other end of that, there are players who perhaps get overlooked and maybe deserve to be taken in the first round or second round, but don't, and then they find work in New England because every time. What players do you think that everybody's overlooking right now? Names that aren't on everybody's top 5 lists or anything like that.
This is an exciting thing to talk about for me because I watch film all the time, and I see these players, maybe smaller guys, smaller bodies, not as strong, not as physical, maybe have had some recent issues medically or with the law, these guys who have fallen. But a guy who I really, really like is Karl Joseph, the safety from West Virginia. This guy, I'm saying it right now, this guy will be the best safety in this year's draft class. He is a dominant hitter.
That is bold.
I know the NFL is getting away from the big time hitters. I mean, that's just how the NFL is now. But Karl Joseph, to me, is a really, really great player. I think will be better than Jalen Ramsey, like everybody is projecting. But Karl Joseph has just shown me enough on film for me to say that. He will probably go in the 3rd or 4th round because he's not like so far down there. People know about him a little bit, not everyone. But what you have to do, look up Karl Joseph, watch his film, and you'll see what I'm talking about. His coverage skills are really good too, and in zones. But yeah, Karl Joseph, he's legit.
All right.
Another player is another safety. The safety's position's getting a little lucky this year. Is Darian Thompson. He as well is a big hitter. He's not as good, in my opinion, as Karl Joseph, but I think he will be able to find success in this league. He kind of reminds me a little bit of like a George Iloka, someone like that. I think Darian Thompson could be a plug-and-play guy. Is he an instant starter? I'm not sure, but he's somebody that I think should be higher on people's boards. They should at least be looking at him, considering him for like a 2nd round type player. Another player, Joshua Garnett. This dude can flat out play. He's a guard. He's very, very good. And I saw his film, and I had ranked him the best overall guard in this year's draft class. He is projected to go in the 3rd or 4th round, but I think he should be a late 1st rounder or high 2nd rounder. Maybe go to a team at like Carolina, even though they don't really need that position, or Denver, or just in the lower class of 1st rounders, or even at the early start of the 2nd round. I mean, think about it. If you're Tennessee and you get Laramie Tunsil with your 1st pick, and you get Garnett at 2, I mean, that's the best tackle and the best guard. That's 1-2. You already have Marcus Mariota, and now you got DeMarco Murray. So you're trying to put together something on offense. And that's what I think Garnett could do for you. He can provide some instant help.
You hear that, Tennessee?
That's why I
Right
think,
here.
that's why I think he should go in, like I said, late first round, early second round. My last player is Devontae Booker. Almost everybody knows about this guy. He's very fast. He's skillful. I don't know, he has a different skill set than what we usually see in the NFL. Usually it's just a speedster or a flat out power runner, but he kind of has it all. And I really like him. I have him as my second overall running back. And I think running backs, I only have one going in the first round, even though there should be more, because running backs, there's a lot of them in the NFL. But I think Devontae Booker needs a team who has, he would be good with the Patriots, someone who has a quarterback, a few receivers to throw to, and you put him in the backfield, and it's a good fit. Even if you put him with the Green Bay, it's also a good fit. But I think he deserves to go in the second round.
All right, before we get to your partial mock draft, we're gonna play somewhat of a game. I have a list of players here that I want to know from the man over here. Is the hype real? What is the hype deserved for these particular players? And we've touched on some of them already during the show, but we'll start real quick with Jalen Ramsey. You said that as a corner, no, but as a safety, yes. Out of Florida State, what do you type, yes or no?
I would not believe the hype for Jalen Ramsey. Like I said, like you just said, cornerback no, safety yes. And it's kind of interesting just to see what team gets him. It will likely be the Chargers, so they will likely put him as safety.
After they lost
Weddle. Yeah. But I don't know. He doesn't excite me. A lot of people get mad just when I bring up the fact that he might not be as good as people think. But I think people just want him to be so good. At Florida State, he wasn't this dominant, world-class player. He was a very good player. I'm not saying he's not a good player. And I'm not saying he's not going to be a good player. I'm just saying as of right now, I do not believe the hype that he's going to be what everybody expects.
Joey Bosa, the defensive end out of Ohio State.
Joey Bosa, I'll believe the hype. I'll believe the hype for Bosa. Why? Because he can get to the quarterback. He's what every team is looking for right now. He really reminds me of Derek Wolfe from the Denver Broncos. He has a similar body type. A lot of people compare him to J.J. Watt, but no one compares to J.J. Watt. That's just the facts.
It's hard to compare to J.J. Watt because it's J.J. Watt.
Like the second tier player, he kind of reminds me of Derek Wolfe, and I think he can grow into more. Will he ever be J.J. Watt? Probably not, because there aren't a lot of those. Will he lead the league in sacks? Probably not. But the defensive end position in the NFL is so thin that even if you have a little bit of success, it's enough for hype. I mean, DeMarcus Lawrence for the Cowboys, he had 8 sacks. And everyone talks about him now around the Cowboys like he's this great thing, Even though, 8 sacks is pretty good. There's other guys getting more. So as long as you can find a little bit of success as a defensive end, then the hype is more believable. So for him, I would believe the hype.
Laremy Tunsil, I think I know the answer to this one.
Laremy Tunsil.
Tackle from Ole Miss.
Absolutely believe the hype. Hands down the best lineman. He's the best lineman that I've seen in a long time. He's compared to Tyron Smith. So yeah, absolutely believe the hype.
Miles Jack, we touched on him earlier, linebacker from UCLA.
Miles Jack, quarterback, like I said, I would not believe the hype just due to the fact that I don't think he's going to meet expectations like Ramsey. Again, I'm not saying they're bad players. I just don't think they will meet the expectations that people are setting on them.
All right, and we touched on him. Carson Wentz, you said he's going to go to the Browns and do what every other Browns quarterback has ever done in the history of the Browns.
Carson Wentz, I do not believe the hype just due to the fact that he is going to go in the first round. And you might be thinking, that's kind of weird. If Carson Wentz doesn't go in the first round, let's say he falls to the second round, hypothetically, and he goes to the Cowboys. He can learn behind Romo for maybe 2 to 3 more years. And he'll have that experience. Like I said, Carson Wentz didn't do anything that impressed me, but he didn't do anything that I was against either watching his film. So he has a lot of potential. It's just if you put him in a situation right now to start day one, you're just setting him up for failure. But if you give him the opportunity to learn under someone else, then he has a chance to succeed. So I'm saying I do not believe the hype just due to the fact that he's going to go in the first round to a team that does need a quarterback right now day one.
So he has potential,
Yeah, he has
with time.
potential. And again, he doesn't have the most potential. He's my third quarterback. Well, I wouldn't say that. He's actually now, after watching all of the quarterbacks, he's now like my fourth or fifth. But he does have potential.
Jared Goff.
Jared Goff, a player that I like a lot out of California. He is my favorite quarterback in the draft. When I watched his film, I was impressed so much by what he could do. His big arm, the accuracy, the big playmaking ability, everything you want your quarterback to do now. I absolutely believe the hype for Jared Goff. He will likely go to the 49ers. So there are a little bit of pieces for him already. It's close to home, San Francisco. He doesn't have to travel far. I think it will be a good scenario for him. It's just, with Chip Kelly, you never know with quarterbacks. So Jared Goff as a player, absolutely believe the hype. His situation, 49ers, pretty good. Chip Kelly might damage that, but we'll see.
Ronnie Stanley, the tackle out of Notre Dame.
Stanley, I absolutely believe the hype. If it was any other draft class and you took out Laremy Tunsil's name from the offensive lineman, he would be your first overall pick. Remember a few years ago when Eric Fisher got taken?
That's right.
Well, Stanley's better than him. By far, he's better than him. It was Eric Fisher and Lane Johnson, I was trying to remember, that went early. But yeah, Stanley from Notre Dame, I mean, he's a mauler. Like, he's really, really good. I had him and Tunsil almost at a tie. I could really see no difference in them besides the fact that Tunsil's bigger and he reminds me a lot like Tyron Smith, like I said. But Stanley is also very good, and I think no matter what team he goes to, he'll find success as well. So I absolutely believe the hype for him.
Another player we talked about earlier, DeForest Buckner, fantastic name.
DeForest Buckner.
What you got?
I don't believe the hype for Buckner. Buckner's more of a rotational player in my mind. You bring him down maybe to blitz the quarterback on third down. Different scenarios, a package player, but if you want to get him as your full-time defensive tackle, I'm not sure he will get it done. So I don't believe the hype.
We already mentioned this, and we already probably know the answer. Laquan Treadwell.
I absolutely believe the hype for Laquan Treadwell. Like I said, he can fly, he can catch, he can do everything you want him to. He actually, the player he reminds me most of is Dez Bryant. Just skill set. They're very, very similar players. Dez Bryant has had success in this league. He looked a lot like Treadwell coming out of Oklahoma State. So, I mean, that basically answers your question. If they're so similar, Des Bryant had success, Treadwell will probably have success. So I believe the height.
And last but not least, maybe I'm not sure, Ezekiel Elliott, the running back out of Ohio State.
Ezekiel Elliott. Now this one's intriguing. Everybody likes Ezekiel Elliott. But why? That's the question. Why? Derrick Henry, in my mind, is the better running back. I think Devontae Booker brings more to the table than Elliott. But for some reason, everybody likes Elliott. Is Elliott going to be a good player? Yeah, he'll have some success in the league. But there's other guys that you could get. You could get Derrick Henry. You could get Devontae Booker. Now, people might think I'm crazy for saying that Booker is better than Elliott. People think I'm crazy for saying Henry is better than Elliott. But I really do think that those guys are better than Elliott. Elliott is a fantastic runner. He has great field vision and he's a playmaker. But the other two guys do it better. I believe the height and I don't believe the height. This one's a little different than all of the others. Again, it's all about situation. Because if you put him in the New York Giants backfield with Eli Manning and Odell Beckham, I mean, that's a great trio. That's a great trio, great fit. But if you put him in the Dolphins backfield where I have him going, will it work? They have Jarvis Landry, Ryan Tannehill, and they would have Elliott, which is funny. It's kind of like the Giants scenario. It's just the Giants would be like the big brother to the Dolphins. I think it comes down to where he lands. But overall, don't believe the hype on Elliott. Go and draft yourself the next Eddie Lacy, or go find yourself the skillful Devontae Booker.
All right. We're going to move on to our last bit here, but I think you're excited for it. Jacob's been working for a few weeks, and we're going to reveal his first 10 picks in the draft. Who do you got, Jake?
Okay, so first overall pick, the Tennessee Titans select Laramie Tunsil. It's expected.
Makes sense.
Like I said, he will bring an instant impact to that offense. They desperately need something on that offense, and they're starting to gain a few players. Mariota's coming back for his second season. So, Tunsil number 1. I'm 99.9% sure of that pick. Number 2, like we said, Carson Wentz to the Cleveland Browns. I'm sorry, Cleveland fans. You did it again. Carson Wentz, out of all the players, actually fits into their system the best. That's why I have him going there. Even though, I think Jared Goff and Paxton Lynch are better players.
Yes.
It's just all about the scheme. So I have Carson Wentz going there. San Diego with pick 3, taking Jalen Ramsey as expected. Jalen Ramsey will be taking the place of Eric Weddle, so there's no surprise there. Number 4, the Dallas Cowboys. Thin at the defensive end position. They go and get themselves Joey Bosa. Joey Bosa brings explosiveness. That's the thing. He brings explosiveness to that defense. So I think that's a good fit for him. Personally, Vernon Hargreaves, Noah Spence. In my mind, that's who I want. But Joey Bosa will do. Pick 5, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like I told you, Malik Jackson, Tashawn Gibson, they're starting to put things together. How about adding Myles Jack, the best linebacker in this year's draft class? Like I said, Myles Jack won't live up to the expectations set on him but he will do enough. He's better than all of the linebackers that the Jacksonville Jaguars have now, so that's a good fit for him. 6, Baltimore. They lost Kelechi Osemele, so they will replace him with Rooney Stanley, who I told you could have been a first overall pick in a few years back. Pick 7, San Fran gets Jared Goff.
As you mentioned earlier.
Yes, it's a good fit. He's close to home. He's the best passer in this year's class. So, I mean, that's just really a good fit for him. Pick 8, Philadelphia switch picks with Miami.
Yes, I did.
I actually have Philadelphia taking Ezekiel Elliott. Now, you know the Eagles' new coach very well from the Chiefs.
Yes, I do.
And you know how they try to run their system. They're all about system players.
They do a fantastic job.
Ezekiel Elliott is the type of player, he could take the role of Jamal Charles. I mean, really, team to take. But that's a great pick for them because they have a few pieces up front, and now if they can add him to the back, they brought Brent Grimes from Miami. Grimes, Hargreaves, that's pretty good 1-2 punch. And then last, I have the New York Giants taking Laquan Treadwell to pair him up with Odell Beckham. That is an absolute deadly group. You still have Victor Cruz, Dwayne Harris, the Eagles, the Cowboys, and the Redskins. They're all lacking cornerbacks. So if the Giants, it's hard enough for the NFC East teams to stop Odell Beckham. You add Laquan Treadwell to the other side, what I said is like Dez Bryant. There's really no stopping him there. Yeah. And that's my top 10 picks. In the next episode, I will reveal my entire first round.
That's right.
When I get a little more, I have all the information I need to do it now, but I just want to see how the rest of free agency shapes up, and then I will reveal the rest of my list.
Because we still have a long way to go in the free agency and a lot of changes that are still yet to come. Anyways, that does it for the first episode of Balls and Bros. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned, we'll have some more episodes coming out, like a smaller episode for Jacob's Draft specifically. We'll talk about free agency. Maybe we'll talk about basketball or something, other balls as well.
Yep.
Alright, I'm David, this is Jacob. Thank you for watching.